Here. All right. So this week, what I wanted to do is a couple of things. I wanted to actually go through and say, okay, we'll go through this installation with CentOS, which I went through last week here. And let me get you some minimum requirements. This is what led to me getting here. So let me go back to DigitalOcean, walk through some basic, and you can do this on DigitalOcean. You can do this on AWS. We can also do this on a couple of other things. So first things first, I'm going to show you DigitalOcean, and this can be applied to any of the cloud providers. And then I'll walk you over to doing it the easy way, because I think Paloma and Michael Jenkins are like, we could just do containers, and I'm like, we can. But it's not the fact that I like doing things the hard way. It's the fact that I just like for you to see the full steps. So if you have to go back and troubleshoot it, or you know what you need to do. All right. So with DigitalOcean, um, switch out here, and let's create a droplet. And you can see from here I did 8 gigs, 8 gigs of memory and 20 gigs. And that, the reason why I did that is because if you go back up here and look at the system requirements, and we'll talk about this architecture here. But if you look at the system requirements, where did you just go to? I don't know why it spun down so fast, but okay. Release notes, do they have it at the top? No. It's on here because I was looking at it earlier. Sorry for if I'm making anybody dizzy. Not trying to. All right, so here it is. So they talk about the supported platforms they have, and then they come down here and here's the system requirements. Okay, so for us, we're not using RedHat 7, we're using CentOS 7, and so we need to have the EPEL as part of our repo. So let's go here and make sure I have my EPEL set up for this. By default, DigitalOcean gives you root privileges, so that's why I'm logging in as root. And let's do a yum repo list. All right, so you can see I have the EPEL here and I have everything else. But really, if you follow the manual install, the manual install for Foreman actually walks you through all of that. So the quick start, selecting your operating system here, and walking you through, you'll see you have the Puppet Lab repo, and this is Puppet 4, and then it comes down here and it installs the EPEL for CentOS 7 or RHEL 7 as well, and then the Foreman, and then you do the yum installer. You do that install, do a yum install of that, and then you start up Foreman, and then at the end it gives you credentials. So the credentials, let me see, on here, it didn't put the credentials inside of, like, for me, inside of my, if I spun up OpenStack, it'll create a credential file. So, and I can go back at any point in time and grab that. All right. So basically all I did was here for DigitalOcean, I just created I grabbed the droplet. You can check and see if they have a, what they call just a one-click app. Chris will be excited about this. They already have one for GitLab, but as you can see, there's nothing else in here for like Foreman Katello. So yeah, we couldn't do that. So we have to do an install. All right. So basically, I did the install. Let me see if I remember the password. Did I change it? Oh, something went wrong. Yeah. Great. That's awesome. So we're going to do what we did last week. We're actually going to walk through this install, because I don't remember the thing. Let me see. I'm sure I can probably hop into the database and do it, but we are going to let it do its thing. Let's see if it'll overwrite what I've done already. And it should give me, it should print out a username and password for me, just like you see down here at the bottom. Now, while that's doing this thing, the other thing that you could do is Bitnami. All right. So Bitnami provides various cloud, I guess you could say, uh, already installed containers or cloud images. And you could do that, but for us, let me see if they have something in here. Let's go in here. And this would be like if I was deploying to AWS. Let's see if they have one for Foreman. No, let's look up Katello. No. So, with that being said, we know Docker Hub has one for Katello. So let me do his. Let's see, it's Foreman. Yeah. So here's the one for Foreman. And basically you could just do a Docker pull on Foreman, and then they walk through how you can set, well, how you can actually just redirect your ports and then go from there. So if you just truly like don't want to do this install, you just do a Docker pull on this and then go from there. So I'll post that link there. Let me see where we're at with my current Foreman installation manually. All right, so there you go. There's my admin credentials. Let's see if I can get in now. Let me highlight and go back in as admin. Oh, what's that IP address? That's awesome. 192 is copy. All right, so now admin, and let's grab that password again. And I could have went by the name. I may have to go by the name. This may error out of me. Okay, so let's go this. Let's do this. Study, because I put this in my host file. Oh, it doesn't like me. I thought I changed this password. I did. Okay. No, I went crazy. Maybe a little. All right. So inside of here, you'll see like you have, and what I like about Foreman is this is the cheaper version of the satellite server. Like I was saying last week, the satellite server from RedHat is about $12,000. And with contact sales. Yeah, basically, Foreman Katello is what the satellite server from RedHat is built off of. So what I'm allowed to do in here, and just as well as what I can do in Katello, is say I have Docker images out there that I want to have. I can pull from Docker Hub. Let me go back over here. I can pull from Docker Hub. I can pull from I can pull from, I can create instances out on Amazon. So right here is a way that, if I wanted to create instances on DigitalOcean or Amazon, I just put in my credentials. So this errored out on me. I had to figure out when I was doing this, when I did my install, I think I had to pass it some parameters. And so let's go back to that. I think it may be this one. Any questions so far? So providers, as far as for when you say providers, are you talking about cloud providers? So,
Yes,
what'd you say?
yes, I was asking those
Yeah,
for
so
create cloud resource.
yeah, so like with the satellite server and with Foreman, I can put in my credentials and say I want to create a resource out on Amazon Cloud. I do Amazon Cloud, and I know I can do Google Cloud. I know I can do Digital Ocean, and there's like two more that I can actually go out to and actually connect with. So let's go through some of the stuff here. All right, that's the installation. Here, the way Foreman handles things, it uses Puppet. Now, with that being said, Red Hat bought Ansible. So I know there's this big push to integrate Ansible into all of their stuff. I don't think right now, I know for a fact right now, Ansible is not inside of Puppet 6.1 and 6.2, but that doesn't mean it may not come out in 6.4 and 6.5 as later on releases as they strip Puppet out, because they bought Puppet for something. I mean, they bought Ansible for something, and that's the only place I can see Ansible being used. Excuse me. So here they're going through and you integrate Puppet. We've already did the install of Foreman and so forth, and we already did the install of Puppet, but this is just a manual. It's telling you what ports need to be configured. I did not turn on any firewalls on here because I can destroy. But again, when I did my install, I should have probably said enable Foreman EC2, so we know we can use one of the providers is Amazon. The next one is GCE, so that's a Google provider. We can do OpenStack, we can do Rackspace, we can do VMware, we can do Azure, we can turn on the plugin for Ansible. So when you're doing this, go back and doing it, you can create an answer file, and in that answer file, you can enable all these modules. So that way you don't have to do dash dash enable Foreman compute stack OpenStack dash dash enable Foreman compute rack space. You don't have to do all of that. You can just set it up where you have an answer for all your every plugin that you want. So that would be the best thing I would do. So um, here you can also provide, like, if you have particular SSL certs that you want to have installed and so forth, you can do all of that too. All right, so here they give you a scenario, and this is where I was talking about with a Foreman installer dash dash database type dash dash. You would actually literally do all of this. So that's just one aspect. The other aspect of why I like this is because now I can come over here and see I didn't install my other stuff, but that's okay. We're just gonna walk through this. So in here, let's say create an operating system. I can tell it, basically I can make a template for my kickstart. So say I want to spin up an instance inside of Google Cloud, but I want to have a certain partition, a certain OS and so forth. I can come in here and say, hey, I want to have some revision, whatever. I can choose the architecture here. I can walk through. Let's choose Red Hat. Well, let's see if CentOS is in here. Red Hat, Core OS, Arc Linux. And I can add CentOS, but for right now, we'll do Red Hat 64. My partition table, I can pick and choose how I want that partition table to look. I'm just going to use Kickstart default. Let me go back. And you can see Jumpstart is I was using Ubuntu. the installation media of where I want to pull my repo from. And then like if I had a template that I wanted and certain parameters that I wanted to pass. And then you just hit submit. So now let's go look at this. Do they give me the breakdown? No, they don't give me a breakdown there either. So let's go back over here for my installation media. So by default, now this is all a default install. They're pulling from CentOS, CoreOS, Fedora, and so forth. But I can create another mirror to pull from. So let's talk about that too. So there is, I didn't see it on there, but let me look. Yeah, I don't see it on there. So Arc Linux, and you can do Mint as well too. I spelled mirror wrong, but it found it. So basically, you can grab their mirror. Here's the ISOs. Let's look and see how it's pulling images. It's just pulling them from an OS. So we don't want to pull an ISO. As you can see here, it's just pulling the OS itself. So let's look and see. They use an rsync here. Let's Canada. Download mirrors. Let's go. And let's go stable. And the latest and greatest is this one. And let's modify it. So KDE, XFE. Oh, I didn't mean to download that ISO. Oh yeah, these are all ISOs. All ISOs. So yeah, these are all ISOs. So the trick there is, oh, here's a repository. So was that under ISOs? All right, fine. Let's go right here. Let's say, oh, here we go. Packages. Scrap that guy. All of that. And then let's come back over to you. Create a medium. That's what I'm on. Am I on Arc? Or am I? Yeah, I'm on Arc. So Arc Linux. The path. Let's choose a family. There we go. And submit. And now we got Arc Linux that shows up. There you go. So you can point to different paths if you had to. So when you say Linux based, you mean Debian based or Ubuntu? Because Linux has different flavors. So what I'm looking and seeing from that is that it was more Debian based. Not from what I was looking at. So we can go back here and look at it here. See, and it falls under Debian. And if we go to stable, we go here. I just downloaded this, so it's still downloading. So let's go back up one. Let's go to the Debian one. Yeah, that's the Debian based. Any questions so far? All right. All right. So now when we get over to the other stuff, infrastructure. And there's some stuff that's been left out of here. And I'll probably go back and reinstall this with all the parameters turned on. So because I don't see the content groups, and that's what we need. Yeah, see, I don't see the content groups and so forth, but I'll show you that because that's important. In fact, I have it here. I sent myself a link Do 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 do. Let's grab the link because I want to show you that. And I'll post this link for you as well. All right, hold on. Let me get that link over there to you. All right. All right, so in here on the left-hand side, I'm looking and I'm going to content. And that's because you don't see everything. And we'll do a Katello. But you see here you got monitor, content, host, configure, and infrastructure. And then when you come back over here, you just got host, configure, and infrastructure. So that lets me know we're missing some stuff. So let's scroll up here and let's look at installation. And I can tell you exactly what step was missing when I did it. Let's go CentOS here. The yum install Katello, and when I did my install, I should have did Foreman scenario Katello, because that's going to give you everything else. All right, so with that, I want to show you this. Well, I'll go back and do this, and I'll make some instructions up on how to do it. So with content, what I'm able to do is all those repos that you just saw, you'll have I can download those repos and I can set it up like a cron job. So every day or every week or every month, however I choose to do it, it'll go out and set all of that up for me. And that's really cool to just pull it for me. And then, like when I was talking earlier about Docker management, I can sync repos so I don't have to go out to Docker every time. I can just pull everything from one source. So the major question is why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this so that case, if you go out and build your own environment or you're at work and you want to have like a repo that has everything in it, you can easily say, okay, I'm going to build out this Foreman, Katello, or satellite server, I like to say. And then I can say, okay, I'm going to grab I'm going to grab Arch Linux. I'm going to grab Ubuntu. I'm going to grab everything I can. Now, remember this now, when you're grabbing these things, you see how big this one ISO is, right? That I just grabbed. It's 1.5 gigs. Keep in mind, every time you grab ISOs or you're grabbing packages, you're using space on these machines. So if you don't need it, then don't grab it. If you just want to play with it, do a one-off somewhere over in some cloud or something like that. Because what you end up doing is, the way it works is, let me grab this. If you cd over to var lib, there should be a directory in here. It's usually a directory called pulp, but the way it works is Katello installs everything under varlib pulp. And so when you're making your directory, you need to make sure that you enable it to be where varlib pulp is big enough, or you at least have enough space to store everything. Right now at work, I have a satellite server that's 3.5 terabytes. 2.5 terabytes of that is ISOs and other things. So there's a ISO for there's ISOs for row 6, 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6, 6, 6, 7, 6, 8, 6, 9, and there are 4 gigs apiece. And then there are 32-bit versions of each one of those. So that's just for row 6. And then row 7 is 4 gigs by itself. The satellite server by itself needs a minimum, probably of 16 gigs and probably like 8 CPUs. Then you start talking about, oh, I want Docker images and I want to pull the entire EPL. Well, the EPL itself, I think it's 16 RPMs in that list itself. 11,000. 11,000. And then here you see I have the CentOS base. You see I have the CentOS SELO. And then I have everything else. So if I keep adding repos and after repo, they have to have somewhere to go too. So you can get big really, really, really quick. So if you know you're gonna be CentOS 7 all the way, and that's all you're gonna ever use, just download CentOS 7s and the EPL and Puppet and maybe the Ansible or something like that. So that's just an FY, and everything goes on the varlib pub. So I should go back and do a Katello install. Well, I should just enable Katello. So right here, when it's talking about configuring a host group, so I can configure my host group. Let me say, let's do workstations. I don't have an environment set up by default. They have production set up. My Puppet Master, when I did the install, was me, study.women.linux.com. The Puppet classes, I don't see anything here, but it may show up. Yeah, I haven't installed anything. But anyway, you set up all this environment. Network, I can create subnets or my domain. I don't have any subnets or anything created up. It's rare default. I have to go through and set all that up. The operating system is going to pull everything locally. You see how it's pulling everything? I just did everything. It's pulling all that locally. Let's do 7. You see, it's pulling everything locally. So there's some setup that you have to do beforehand. So let's do grub. You can do UFEI. You set the root password and whatever parameters. So in your host group, so basically when you go to create a host, it's going to pull this little template out, and then it's going to create the host based upon that. So with the Puppet stuff, as you can see, I don't have anything set up where I pulled in any Puppet classes. So let's look and see about, do we need to pull some things in? Let's see. Yeah, see, there's nothing there. And I know there's nothing there. Yeah, it's just blank. So let's look. You said in reference to creating local mirrors for CentOS and EPL. What do you, I don't understand your question. If that's just a statement.
It's more a clarification for Huge. We were talking earlier about creating
Okay.
local mirrors.
Yeah. So in here, I don't have anything pulled. Let's go over to the documentation, which we probably should use the one for Katello, and grab. Let me see. Do they have anything in here on Puppet? Right here. So, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Because I don't have the content set up, Puppet is in there. So let's see what happens when we just go back and do that. Let's grab that. Let's go back up here. Installer. Not you. That's Foreman. Let's go back up here on install for Katello. Let's do CentOS. Yep. Let's do this. Let's rerun it. No package. Okay, what we're missing? We're missing the Katello repo here. We're missing this first line right here. This sets up the repo. It's on CentOS? Yeah. All right. So this is gonna go out. Yeah, you'll be okay. And set up the repo for us. And I'll show you where it created that. If you cd over to etc yum.repo and then you do a ls, you'll see that here's the Katello repo. And you can there's one for the client and one for the server. And you'll have to have that for setting it up. All right, so then we have the let's do the yum install that we did before. And now Katello should install. I'll do a yum transaction later. But as you can see, it's pulling all the stuff that it needs for Katello. All 275 packages that is downloading. All right. And then after that, that's when you do the Foreman install dash dash scenario. And we'll run this command just to see if there's some options that we need to turn on. But it says, let's see, prior to running the installing machine, we should set up the time servers. Okay, we can do that. And we also should be set as the answer file now and then run blah, blah, blah. All right, so let's see where we're at because I want to get the features so that you can see the products because that's what, where'd it go? That's what we were missing. The content views, the products, you want to be able to set all that up. And this right here, like I say, is the free version of setting this up for the satellite server. Now on the paid version of the satellite server, you don't do as much manual work. It's click and go. So that's the thing. Plus you get support. With this, you don't get any support. You are the support. So whatever. So when it's talking about disconnected here, so you know, in in an air gapped world, you don't have connection to the outside. So you have to create what I call it just a two-pronged scenario. You create two machines. One machine is going to be outside that's going to constantly keep picking up everything that you need, and then there's another machine that's going to sit air gap where it's not even connected to the internet. It's connected to a private network, and it's going to just get up. It's just going to keep things updated. But your machine that's connected to the network, it's going to keep pulling down everything that it needs to pull down. So normally what ends up happening is in these cases is you'll get something like a Arch Linux repo and they'll have an update and you'll download just the ISO. You'll take that ISO, walk it over to your machine or what have you, you know, put it in your machine, up, mount the disk, and then copy the data off, and then import that same data over to your machine that's already tied up, that's on the network. So that's what that is. We're still doing that install. So the other thing I wanted to show you too, while we're here, is I talked about the Big Nami stuff. We also talked about deploying out with the various providers. So let's look at EC2 provider. Let's see, Katello deployment. Let me see if they got a one right here. All right, so basically you would see something like this. Like you put in your access key, you put in your access ID, you put in your secret key, and then you put in the region you want to deploy to. And then when you come back and you want to create, you go based upon your images and everything. And so that's what another thing, everything that you have deployed out on Google, not Google Cloud, but everything you have deployed to the various clouds, it's going to show back up, as to the IP address and giving you host information and so forth about it right there inside of Katello. And so in here they show you like you can create a template for it, and they break down this template like what you want to have. You could just cut and paste this, but they also provide one for you. So it's pretty straightforward. And so you'll use Puppet to say you have a banner that you want to add or a particular configuration that you want to add in terms of how to authenticate. Um, I'll give you my personal setup. My personal setup is free IPA, a NFS server, and a and a satellite server. Now, a lot of people put all of those things together. So if that, I look at it, if that machine dies, all three of those things die. If you separate that out, or this is where it comes with redundancy, if you separate all that out, then if NFS dies, then you don't have to worry about your satellite server dying. If satellite server dies, then NFS server can still be up. If free IPA dies, then you don't have to worry about the other two dying. So I try to keep services separate. So with that being said, you can use free IPA with all on one machine. You can install the satellite server all on one machine, and you can install NFS all on one machine. But I don't do that. I keep everything separate. That's just my own personal choice. You may find that just to be overly cumbersome, but that's just me. Any questions so far? Trying to find my stuff that I was using right here. Katello. Let's go down here to this installer. All right, let's run this command on here. Make that a little bigger for you. All right. It didn't like something. I wonder if it's a Python thing. Let's try that. It may be a Python thing. Executing hooks, blah blah blah, flashed. For what's error? You're trying to replace an existing installation with a different scenario. This may lead to unrelated. Use dash force. Okay, for all intents purposes, people, we're gonna dash force it because I'm gonna redo this anyway. But hey, let's see how this acts. Oh, there it is. Air it out on me. Why are we airing out? Let's find out. That's a Ruby error. It's already registered and cannot be re-registered. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So we'll do this. I was trying to be cheesy. Let's create a droplet. We know we need about 8 gigs. To do a memory. Yeah. We'll call this Katello.womenonlinux.com. Create. I'll run through that. The other thing I wanted to get to tonight, which I probably won't have time to, is I wanted to. We were having a discussion earlier on Prometheus versus Zabbix. So I'm gonna next week, if I'll be at the conference next week, so it'll probably be the week after that. We're gonna do a install on Zabbix and Prometheus, and I'll probably be nice and probably use something like Bitnami. Let's go and see if they even have it. Um, let's see if they even have anything like that. They should. Today, no. Let's go with Amazon. And here. And let's do a Zabbix. Nope. Prometheus. Nope. But we know who has it. Docker. All right, let's see if I got my email for DigitalOcean instance. I don't see that come through yet. It's up. All right. Let's see. I'm looking now. And let's get logged in to my email. All right. All right, here we go. We got it. Let's back out of this one. And all right. Let's grab the password. We don't care because that changes. All right, we're in. So let's walk through the steps that they have. Basically, it's just setting up repos for Katello. It's really what that is. So we got the hardware requirements. We're going to do CentOS 7. We're going to just highlight this food thing, let it do its thing. All right, let me bring this over. All right, so it's doing this thing. Oh, and we need to set up the Apple. So let's see. Do they give us that inside of that? Yeah, it set up the Apple for us. All right. You need to do a Yum update real quick so we can pull all the latest and greatest updates from the repos that we just set up. All right. That's doing this thing. And then we'll do a Yum install Katello after that. And then after we do the Yum install Katello, we'll go back and we'll be back where we were at with the Foreman installer. 56 packages there. So let's grab this because that's our next thing. And this all could be avoided if I just would have did it the first time, but I didn't. All right. Any questions? Everybody's been able to keep up, nothing over your head. At least I don't think. Well, let me know. Yay, nay, no. Could be. Okay. All right. So then after this, we should be able to see like the products, and that's something I want to show you where it can download and actually show you where it downloads it at in varlib. And then we'll add a host. We'll just use the host that I already have. So there's the client. So normally what happens is when you go to add the host, here's the client install. On the client, let's go CentOS 7. You have to do this. And then you have to install the Katello agent. Once you install the Katello agent, you register that. You have to download an RPM that it has on the Katello server. I mean on the server, and then register with the actual server. The client will register with the server, and once it registers with the server, then you can assign it an environment it should be in. You can assign repos and so forth and so on. So it'll be great. All right, so let's see where we're at. Almost done. All right, come on. You can do it. And thanks for everybody coming out tonight. As we continue to grow, hopefully we can start, having, everyone have their own environment and they can work through this. Well, which you can now. We could have gave you your own instance and you could have followed along too. But just remember, in not next week, but the week after that. Well, maybe next week because I don't leave till Thursday. Yeah, so next week we could do it. We could do Prometheus and um, the stuff for Prometheus and what I say the other one was. What were we just talking about? Gosh, I just forgot. Prometheus. Oh, and Zabbix. Gosh, I couldn't remember. Oh, let me show you that while this is doing this thing. So here is Zabbix. I'm partial to Zabbix because I always thought it was like one of the ones uh, for me that made sense. All right, so here's Zabbix. So where is the download? So if you go click on the download, and if you click on documentation, it takes you right to it. So give it a little time to load here, and it walks you through exactly on what you need to do in order to set up Zabbix for manual install. Like again, you could go to Docker and play with Docker and set all this up if you wanted to. That way you don't have to walk through all of this and set it up. But basically, once you get all that stuff installed, in a quick start section, they walk you through like logging in, adding a host, and I'm on the left hand side of the screen here. A new item, what triggers, how you want to see notifications. You can do a Zabbix appliance if you wanted to, and it's in Ubuntu. If you don't want to play with anything else, they have an appliance. So for me, the appliance works great. The Docker images works great. Manual install works great, depending on where you're at and what you're doing. And then they walk you into. Let's look at their web interface. If they see if they got some pictures, I probably have to go to their picture interface. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Monitoring. Let's see if they have pictures. Yeah, they don't have anything up. Oh, hold on. Dashboard widget. Oh, they just talk about the widgets. So let's look at Zabbix images. All right, here we go. All right, so yeah, these are probably, this is older, but basically it looks similar to this. Like you can do inventory reports, configuration, discovery maps, the whole nine. It worked well for me. Prometheus, I have not dove off into that to say, hey, I like Prometheus uh, over over Zabbix. I can't say that. I can't say that I honestly do. But we're gonna do, as you can see, they got it divided up in Docker and containers, so they probably have a Docker front end and a Docker back end for that. But we'll dive off into that. We should probably do it in a container just for uh, fun. All right, so here doing the Katello install. I think that was 256 packages. Let that do its thing. Let's go over here to Prometheus. All right, so here's Prometheus. Let's see, download. So let me FreeBit Linux AMD 64 is what we want. And so pretty much they have a tar file. And I'm gonna assume you're gonna need every single last one of these. So this is where stuff like Docker containers and all that comes in handy, or a install script, or you pay for it comes in handy. That's where that comes in handy. All right, so let's go over here to that one. Let's see, what's this? GitLab Prometheus. Let's click on that. Yep. Yeah, we haven't got there yet.
This was just a link to building the
Okay.
Prometheus Docker containers that we do within the CNCF.
Okay. So we can do that. So we'll probably be playing. So everyone get ready for a container to go to Docker images. So yeah. So everyone get ready for the containers next week. I'll probably make sure I set up your the labs for that. Yeah, 488 files. So let that run. And let's go and look and see if we can find a Prometheus images. And there's the elk stack too, but I'm not gonna get into the elk stack. All right. So from the looks of it, hope you can see this. Okay, yeah, you can see that. So you can see the host names, the proxy, uh, top continued. I guess they got some drop down menus here. How often it's refreshing, free disk. I mean, if I'm a new user looking at this is kind of cumbersome. Because I don't like everything all on one page. You know what? I'm not sure if it's Helm charts or not. It probably is. Let's look at another one. Yeah, I mean that's what it looks like. This one here. Yeah, but I mean you can see the difference in it between this one and Zabbix. I think somebody had mentioned Grafana earlier. I haven't played with that yet, but I am interested in Prometheus. I'm interested in Prometheus for our own stuff. Yeah. Uh-oh. Got stuff coming in. All right. So yeah. Helm. All right. And with Kubernetes, so you can scale. This sounds like something that was built with Netflix. This sounds like Netflix. But yeah, hey, we could give it a shot. We could do a Prometheus install next week. We can work over that. How we want to do that install. We can work on that. All right. It's still doing this thing. All right. So next week, let's plan on containers, Prometheus, and Zabbix. We'll probably just grab Zabbix. We can work on scaling Zabbix the week after that, using Kubernetes to scale it. And then we can do the same thing with Prometheus and work on Kubernetes to scale it. So let's look at that. Um, we'll run through that. All right. So when this gets done, I don't know when it's gonna get done. Hopefully it'll get done in the next 15 minutes. That's my game. That's my goal. Is to have it done. You're welcome. So if there any questions why this is going on, does Foreman Katello work for anybody's environment? No, could be. Never played with it before. Not sure.
this hippie hacker, Chris. Um, I've been using another fork of some work from Puppet
Mhm.
called there's Razor, and then
Mhm.
Razor
Mhm.
was forked and became was it Hanlon? And I'll drop a link real quick where we have some. There's a blog at II Co-op, and we have our last post. It's a long time ago,
Mhm.
but we did some bare metal provisioning with Hanlon, and
Mhm.
we set up a stack of servers to deploy Kubernetes using
Mhm.
CoreOS, and then
Mhm.
on top of that, deploying GitLab, which incorporates some fun stuff. It just as easily could have been done using Foreman. It
Mhm.
was just a different hardware provisioner.
Right.
Um,
And they
it
just
doesn't
came.
do cloud stuff, just hardware.
Yeah, they just came out with Razor, right? Like maybe late last year.
It's been a long journey. It started out as Razor was a part of Puppet, so it's been part of their hardware journey. I think Razor was purchased by VMware
Uh
as
huh.
part of their strategy for provisioning hardware. And then the folks that had written, and that was part of Puppet, sort of, and that transitioned over to another company called, who has Hanlon now? I think Hanlon, was it Hanlon Provisioner? I was DLX, Hanlon.
But I do want people to get Puppet certified. I do want that.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's CSC took that over.
yeah, I put this over there for everyone to read through it.
So this is part of that.
And
I think,
did you all deploy it to containers? Well, just bare metal.
yeah, anything you deploy on top of Kubernetes is going to have containers. So
Mm-hmm.
let me get that post that was about it's bringing the cloud to your community. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
drop a link here. Sorry, copy paste problem. So this is I think it's important that people be able to locally deploy this cloud stuff
Right.
within their neighborhood. And that was why we were trying to find ways to use things like um, Hanlon or Razor or Foreman to
Mm-hmm.
set up local hardware to be a cloud.
Right. I agree.
It allows us to have a lot more control, particularly if we have access to all of the source code that drives that. So it's completely open where we can be transparent about contributing back to those projects or anything that we use.
That makes sense. I like the idea of uh, being able to deploy and understand it because usually what happens in most jobs you get in, they're like, no, we don't want to do the latest and greatest stuff, so you kind of got to make some things work with. You may have like a latest and greatest tool, like your latest and greatest tool may be Puppet 3, but they don't want to go to Puppet 4, so you gotta kind of make it work with Puppet 3, and then they may
Mm,
have something new that comes out that they want to work with, but they don't want to upgrade that old thing. So it's kind of like you gotta mix
yeah,
old and new, and so you gotta kind of hodgepodge and make things work together. So
yeah,
I prefer, like, like I walk into scenarios all the time where people are not interested in containers. They're just not. And then you walk into another location, and they're like, "Oh, we're just all about containers. We're not doing anything. We don't have any bare metal
yeah,
here. We're all in the cloud." And then some people are like, "I don't want all my stuff in the cloud. I just want some stuff in the cloud." So being able to go back and forth is very important, I find. All right, come on, little fellow, you can do it.
mm,
And where's everybody joining us from? Because I see some new faces. D, I know you. Paloma, you still there? You from Will headquarters. All right, so we're almost done with this one, and then after that, we can I can show you the products, and we can download the actual sync and so forth. Come on, little fella, you can do it. Like it's not that hard. All right. So when do you want to try to do this puppet stuff, Chris?
I'd like to look at doing some of the GitLab portions of the Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm going to actually start connecting maybe tomorrow.
Okay.
So if we can catch up on the chat channels or whatever works best for everyone, particularly being able to, you had mentioned everyone being able to participate and bringing up their own instances. We'd be super excited to try to find a way for that to work within the next few weeks on top of some type of Kubernetes and GitLab.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see if we get the same error. Oh snap. Control A. I don't know where that came from. Control C. Let's go back to that. All right. Let's see if we still get that little same little error that we had before. We shouldn't. All right. That looks better. Okay. So as you can see, it gives me a whole slew of options here. And let's see, do we have one that just says do everything? That probably take forever too. Oh, look, there was a reset I could have did, but I didn't have Katello installed. Um, no interactive log level, no profile, enable scenario. Let's do that. Let's list scenarios here. What are our scenarios? So we have um Foreman, which is I guess the default. So let's do scenario Katello. Okay. All right. So basically, it's gonna do the Katello. Once we get done with once it does its thing with the Katello installation, we should get the ability. This is the old one. We should get the ability to have to add in products, and there's a whole slew of other things that we can add in, and that's when you'll see like you'll be able to grab the whole Puppet Forge repo. I don't know if you've ever been there. So here's the Puppet Forge repo. You just point it to Puppet Forge repo, and it'll pull everything in for that repo. Yeah, so it's 15%. So it's moving pretty fast. So it's gonna grab all these, like view all. So it's gonna grab all of the Puppet modules. Spinning, you can do it. I know last time I looked at it, it was 600 modules, I think it was, but it's been a minute. So you can come here, you can choose your operating system. Let's go with Red Hat. Let's say we're on Puppet 4. We're not enterprise supported, approved. Yeah, let's go with approve. And let's apply filters. Yeah, it's still spinning there. Still going. 26%. Okay, so here's Puppet collected. Here's Yum. Here's the Apple. And you can probably click on to see what this is actually doing. It just gives you a little bit more, and you can make your own modules. You can make modules and upload them to Puppet as well too. And Puppet has a Slack group that you can join as well too. So totally cool, I think, to get Puppet certified. They have what they call the Learning VM. You can play with that right here, and they walk you through the steps of downloading and playing with it. You can also learn at Linux Academy or Udemy, or just on your own if you feel comfortable. All right, 68%, almost there. But yeah, oh yeah, and they have an OVA file. So yeah, it's just an OVA file. So basically, download it, install it with use VirtualBox to bring it up, and then go from there. There's probably a Docker container for this as well too. But I'm not sure what version of Puppet that may be. So the latest and greatest is on 4. And so let's go back to learn. Um, so yeah, so they have a Puppet, intro to Puppet, the Puppet fundamentals, the architect, the practitioner, and then puppetizing the infrastructure. So let's do Atlanta. Don't have any classes. What about all locations search? All right, on the East Coast, it was virtual, so didn't have to pick one. So yeah, November the 7th. I wonder how long the class is. Probably two. What the test is about Puppet, core contents, understanding the code, managing Puppet, roles, profiles, classification, how to use templates, customizing facts, higher troubleshooting techniques. Not too bad. 2400. There you go. It's 2-day class, and get Puppet certified. Like I said before, the one that I saw for Puppet, the job was 150 an hour. Working with Wells Fargo. Is this a new one? Oh, okay. You're giving us somebody's name, but yeah. So it doesn't hurt to get Puppet certified. It doesn't hurt to know how to use Puppet with Foreman and Katello to provide you a cohesive automated infrastructure. And because you can put Docker containers inside of Foreman and Katello and just pull, you can customize, you can deploy to clouds. So it gives you like a one-stop shop for you to go off and do everything that you need to do. 83%, still going, but we'll let that finish out. Any other questions? Anyone have any concerns about what me and Chris was talking about, or things you just may want to know?
It's Emmett here. I got a question about Katello. I came a little late to the party.
Mm-hmm. What's the question?
What is Katello?
So, have you ever seen the satellite server before from RedHat?
Yes.
That's what the satellite server is built off of, Katello and Foreman. So yeah, that's what it's built off for. So if you ever played with the satellite server, it'll tell you to install the Katello agent on that machine. Let me go over here. RedHat satellite. They're on 6.3 now. Let's try this one here. And let's go over here. I just want you to take me to the page where I can get documentation. All right, so let's do a quick start guide. And I'm sure they'll go off into a little bit more here. All right, so you'll have Hammer. You get that as well too to install. Hammer's like your command line tool to go and do whatever you need to do on the satellite server. So if I download an ISO, I mount it on my Linux box, I upload those packages into a repo that I've created on my satellite server, and then go from there. This is just a cheap version of that satellite server, which is pretty important because you want to have one way to say, okay, a good prime example is I need to find out of all the 110 machines that I have, I need to know what version of Python it has on it. I can run an Ansible script provided I have SSH keys set up and everything to tell me what Python version is on all those machines, or I could use Puppet, which is integrated within Katello, and all machines are registered. I can I can just set that up inside of my satellite server, and it'll go out and do its check for me. So there's just two ways to do it, right? But if say I had to say I need to update 20 machines to say CentOS 7.1 or Red Hat 7.1, but I need to update the other machines to do something else. I can do the same thing. I can do all of that from the satellite server. So the satellite server or Katello, however you want to look at it, together, it gives me a better insight on what's going on with my machines. Do they have the latest and greatest packages? Ansible is not going to tell you whether or not your machines has the latest and greatest package. You're going to have to run a command in order to get that. But with Katello, I can just go look at the machine and it'll tell me like it needs these updates. And I'm like, oh, well, update it then. Or no, freeze at this particular juncture because they're doing something in production. And when we updated this the last time, it didn't work. Does that explain it for you?
What does it's now I'm sitting here, the wheels are spinning now. So I'm looking at Foreman differently.
Right.
Um,
So, what you gain is for me is once again, like I say, one stop shopping. If I need to do containers, I can do containers. If I need to spin something up at AWS or Google Cloud or whatever, I can do that. I don't even need to be at command line to do it. I can set my images up. I can set my templates up. I can set everything up for that. So, satellite server with AWS. Let's do this. RedHat.
as I say, that actually came up in a discussion I was having earlier today, centered around what was it? Okay, so on one side it's infrastructure with kube spray. So it was Terraform, Ansible, and I forget the last one, but anyway, Kubernetes.
Mm,
Anyway, and there was this need to get rid of Ansible. It's like, well, no. Ansible is there because we want to be able to just declaratively say, hey, this is what we want to have. It's just going to do it. But then later in the day, it was, hey, well, what happens in the case where you need to know what the infrastructure looks like? So
hmm
now this Katello makes sense to me now. It's like, oh, okay, well, hey, you're making an informed decision to take some action based. It will get you have the declarative state with Ansible, but now you need to be able to survey all of your things to determine what happens to what. And I guess it's label based.
Yeah.
I made that assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, I want to be able to look at 40 instances or 40 VMs, and tell you exactly like what packages they have on them, right? So
Correct.
you can do that in Ansible, right? But it's a manual process. You're going to sit there, you're going to create your playbook, or you're going to go from command line and you're going to say, do an RPM query on all the packages on that machine. But you're not going to know if that machine has been patched and has the latest and greatest security vulnerabilities taken care of. You're not going to know that. You're not going to know what hardware is on that machine, but without running some command. Whereas in with Foreman and Katello, you could look directly at the actual system itself and it'll tell you how much CPU. It'll tell you exactly how much what RPMs are on there. What environment is that set up in? Where is it located at? What is the IP address of that? When was the last time that machine checked in and actually got updates? All that stuff is readily available for you all in one area versus you having to run commands using Ansible to get that information for you and create a report for you.
But that I was gonna say that was my thing this morning. It's like, nah, I could write the code. That's not the point. I want Ansible to do as it's told, not try to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Ansible is very good at saying, okay, you want me to affect, these 40 things. They
Mm-hmm.
could be virtual, bare metal, whatever they happen to be. Just
Mm-hmm.
that's the state that I want them to be in. So from what I hear you say is that I could, with Foreman, it would I could have that information and then tell Ansible, hey, go act upon this set of things because I
Right,
know exactly what needs to
right,
under
because
what circumstances.
behind that is Puppet.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So behind that is Puppet. So yeah, you can do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I like that because I was actually looking at it. And I was like, well, uh, 'cause I'm having to turn. I don't need as far as Spray is concerned. I don't need OpenStack, and there's some hesitation in terms of provisioning the infrastructure with Ansible. So maybe if I had, if I started out with maybe Foreman, because I'm not really. I mean, Jenkins you can use, but I really want something that I can. I want it all SSH. I don't want any clients. I don't want any agents. I just want I want ephemeral things. I want something that is outside the environment. So it looks like Foreman could reside outside the environment, yet still give rich information in regards to what is happening with the infrastructure. What's the state of the infrastructure?
Right. So as you can see, I didn't have Katello installed and turn on. You can
Mhm.
do a side by side comparison with that baseline install from here,
Okay.
and you'll see that I have a whole lot more options than what I had before.
Uh,
Let me pull that down. Now let me pull this over to here. And let me minimize. All right. So you can see just right here and here. I have my monitoring, I have my contents, I have my lifecycle, I have my activation keys, I have my containers, I have hardware models, uh, and infrastructure. So compute resources. So now I'm sure my compute resources should work now. Create. If not, I have to enable those. It just gives me Docker by default. So I probably have to go back and enable EC2, enable so forth and so on. So it's by default, there's not enabled. So I have to go back and enable that. But with that being said, let's click on products, which is the whole reason why we were doing this. And from here, like I was saying before, I can create a product. I can then tell it, let's go and get EPL. And I need the mirror of that. Um, this should work. So let's call it Apple 7. The GPG key, I can go download that. For right now, with just all intents purposes, I'm not. Let's say the latest Apple for CentOS 7. Save it. I didn't create a sync plan, but I can. But for right now, I just want to show you what this is. Well, we'll go back and create a sync plan. All right. So now that I have that set up, I create a new repository. I just kind of keep it the same way, Apple-7. So every time I go back to it, I can always refer. And it says, what is it? Well, is it a Docker? Are you using Docker or File Puppet? No, I'm using Yum. All right, now I'm giving this a name here. Now we get into like SSL certificates and so forth. I don't have, let's do that in the background. Mirror sync, yes. Checksum, I can do that. But here's the thing here. Publish via HTTP. Say yes. So I didn't create a sync profile. So I'm going to probably have to manually do this and do a sync now. If not, I may have to change where it pulled from. Let me see if it starts crying about it. So it goes through its process, and you can log into the server and read the log files, and it'll walk you through about what it's doing. See what's the last file that was read. So it's probably in let's see, date. It is probably in Foreman. Just Control C. All right, so production log probably there. Still pending. Let's double verify some things I know that I don't have. Firewall D on. Yeah, it's not loaded. Okay, just double check. But basically what you'll get here is you'll get the repository all set up and running. It'll give you all of the number of RPMs in there. Over here where I didn't create that sync plan, I can go back now and create a sync plan if I needed to. So under here, you can go to sync plan. Now I'm gonna create one for Apple 7 sync. Do I want to do this hourly or daily? I picked this start day and time. Let's start tomorrow. Let's do it every day at 6. And I think this is based on a 24-hour clock. So 6 may be 6 in the morning. So you save. And now I have one set up for the Apple. All right, so I can add a product if I needed to. Other products that I need to add. Add selected to that sync plan. Go back over here to my products. Let's look at the Apple. Let's look at the task. Okay, there you go. You see it's now trying to synchronize the data. So it's doing this thing. Yeah, it's doing this thing. And once it gets done, you'll see this change to the number of packages that it has. What I've noticed is with CentOS, it doesn't tell you the package groups, so you do have to go back and look into that as far as the groups goes. I'm going to leave this up and I create some logins and stuff for everyone, so you can play with it if you wanted to. As far as the hosts go, when you add hosts, it creates hosts as content hosts. So here where I'm creating a host, this is actually trying to look out to go out to some cloud or bare metal deployment. Remember earlier I created host group, meaning I'm creating a template. I'm creating the content view. It's going to bring all that stuff in. So if you look through the documentation, it's going to tell you what you need to do here. Like you need to create a location first. Like it's a default location. I don't have a host group set up, so this would eventually error out. My lifecycle environment is just like you think a lifecycle environment is: library, dev, QA, production. That's, or whatever you want to call it. You'll see this default content view. The content source is right now local to this box. I didn't do the Puppet stuff, so it should inherit, but I'll turn all that stuff back on. The architecture you want, it's not pulling any operating system. I need to go and set all of that stuff up. The interfaces for it, your Puppet classes, I don't have any of that brought in, but there is some, like I say, some manual configuration that you have to do to work to get it all set up. Once you get it all set up, it'll just start importing all that stuff in. Let's go back to products here. And let's see where it's looking like if it errored out. Just want to verify that it didn't. Yeah, so it's synchronizing. And I don't think, yeah, it's not gonna give you. Let's see, look at the details here. Yeah, so here it goes. I don't know. Did you see that? Products. Come on, Apple here. Oh, it didn't give me my details. But anyway, when this gets done, locally here on this machine, you'll see my repo data, and then I would see all the RPMs, but I don't have anything right now because it's not done doing this thing. Let's go back here. Task. Synchronize. More details. All right, you see that here? It's telling me it's 12.6 gigs. So far, it's downloaded 7 gigs, all 11,968 RPMs that it's downloading. So I've taken up 12 gigs just with the Apple. If I decide that I want to go download CentOS 6 and 7, 32-bit of 32 and 64-bit, remember that's 4 gigs a piece, each one of those. And each one of those has its own SCL and updates and so forth and so on. So you're adding on to that. So if you don't need it, don't download it. Just a waste of space. When we're talking about the partition tables, this template here is what you're going to use when you're creating your kickstart and so forth. So I can come in here, I can create one, I can name it, I can choose whatever family that I'm going to be using for that. And then history, the locations, what different organizations and locations. Like I may have a location in St. Pete. I may have one in Atlanta. That's what you're going to use this for. In terms of environment, that's not the right environment. Lifecycle environments. That's really where it gets down to, like, hey, I'm going to create an environment, but in this environment, I only want, say, the Apple and maybe the Puppet modules from Puppet 3. I don't want Puppet 4 modules. I want to do some testing here. So pretty much you're creating your continuous integration and continuous deployment environment. You can do that all in here as well too. So you can, and I don't know if you ever seen it. Let me see, satellite server and Jenkins. Let's do RedHat. So yeah, so you could do integration with Jenkins with this satellite server as well. So everything, like I say, is like a one-stop shopping. I'll send you this link. So you get you get all of this, and so you can set, like I say, you can set all this up for free in terms of price, but time is the issue there. So let's keep checking that. But now I'm gonna show you some other stuff. Okay. So yeah, so it's look like it's done. Is it? Almost. Oh yeah, it's finishing up. Now that wasn't too bad, right? That wasn't too bad of a time for it to do everything. And so, like I was saying earlier, if you went to var lib and do a ls and you look for pulp, that wasn't there before, and you look for packages, not there. So let's see. I want to see something here. Yeah, pub. And I talked about this earlier, and I'll show you where the packages are at. But you see these RPMs here? These are the RPMs. This Katello, if you look at that, that's a link to the latest and greatest, which is the 101, which is this one here. What you're going to do is you're going to grab that RPM. You're going to install that RPM on the client. You're going to install the Katello agent on the client. Gets registered with that satellite server, and then you can go and do your thing from there. All right, so let's go over to compute resources, and let's just call this one test. I told it the provider is going to be Docker, and then as you can see here, it's going off of where are you, where's this URL at, the username, password, the email, test the connection out, then deploy using Docker. You can also, like I say, you probably have to go back and enable the EC2 stuff and all of that. So in the satellite server, you don't have to do that. The paid version, you don't have to enable all those things. It's already enabled for you. So that's just a FYI. Operating systems. I showed you this earlier. Well, you create an operating system. You pick and choose what you want to add. Um, Here's where we're doing containers, where you want to create a registry of where you're pulling these from, the locations, who's available to use your containers, and then activation keys. All right. So with activation keys are like the crown jewel. So activation keys, I'll walk you through this. So remember I told you about the environment earlier. I set up the environment. I give this activation key a name, so I don't have to walk through and say, hey, once I have this machine up, I am going to register with this activation key. And once I register with the activation key, it's going to set it up for the environment, everything that I need, and I don't have to worry about it. That's what's cool about activation keys. So let's come back over here because you see I don't have a content view set up. Let's go to content views. Let's create a content view. Florida. Composite, that's fine. And I'll give you documentation on this content view. So as you can see, I don't have any other things to add, right? I'm missing some stuff. So this is where it comes in handy. So let's go here. Satellite 6, RedHat, content views. So I'm sure you're asking what in the world is a content view. All right. So All right. See, do that. Can I blow that diagram up? Let's do that. All right. So yeah. So content view contain one or more YARN repos, containers, so forth. I don't have any of that stuff set up right now, so that's why it's empty. And they're just walking you through here on how to set up a content view. And it says, yeah, if you select composite view, it will override any filter and allow you to choose a group of published, established, or published content views and bundle those within your one. Let's see where my little product stuff is at. Still going. Pending. Let's click on pending. I should be able to get to task. Yeah, it's still doing its thing. And it's gonna be a minute, but that's okay. You got a chance to actually see, stuff in action. So, let's go there. Documentation. I think they're on 6.3 now. I just saw that earlier. So, we don't want to do cluster. What happened to the? Let's go back one. And let's go here. All right, so creating a location. I talked about the location. Content views. Again, searching for content. Everything you see here is in order of what you need to set up first. And remember I did a thing about OpenSCAP? You can do OpenSCAP. Another thing that you can do is make sure that it's when you're setting up your instances or your machines, you can make sure you can scan them, make sure they're meeting certain STIG requirements that's already built into it. You could do that. You can create compliance reports, like they say, you can update information for OpenSCAP and so forth, like that. Um, so that's a good thing. You could also hear what we're talking about. Remember earlier I was talking about inspecting for latest and greatest security updates. You can break that down. Here they're talking about containers. We're doing a repo right now. The registries for that, for Docker images. Uh, Here is your meat and potatoes of everything that you're going to need to do for your host. In terms of setting up the activation keys, setting up what that host is able to see, um, and go from there. Here, the partition tables. Some manual installation has to be done if you want to use this as a kickstart. So that's the tricky part. Using this as a kickstart machine, you're going to have to set up DHCP. You're going to have to set up Pixie. You're going to have to point it to the right location and all of that. So your machines that are on the network can recognize this machine as a TFTP server, get a DHCP IP address, kick off, and everything that I showed you earlier where we were doing partition tables and stuff like that and everything, that's where all your kickstarts go. So doing it manually is not suggested, because what happens is whatever you do here inside of the actual interface and what you do manually, anytime you start to run it or reboot it or what have you, it's going to overwrite that. Trust me, I know, I've done it a couple of times. So then they get in here to talking about configuring Puppet and Fax and so forth and all this other stuff. You can do a bare metal deployment. So if a machine comes up with comes onto the network, it can automatically get put into a particular environment based upon its NIC card. And once it goes into that environment based upon its NIC card, it's gonna assume a certain level of configuration and then go from there. You can manually discover like a host or what have you. So there's so much. And again, you can do this all with free IPA so people can log in. They're talking about LDAP, but you can do free IPA as well too. So you have free IPA. Those machines can be on IPA, free IPA, and get added in, and that's what they talk about here. There's also a capsule server. So by default, with the satellite server, there is a RedHat. There's a main server and a capsule server, and so the capsule server acts as uh, your go between. So your satellite server goes out to the internet, pulls out everything that you need. Your capsule server replicates that information. All your instances point to that capsule server, which is the same thing as that satellite server. So you don't abuse your satellite server because it's a workhorse by itself, but everything goes to that capsule server and go from there. So we could dive off more into this as well too, and we probably will, because it'll probably be how we set up instances and where you'll get all your containers from, like kind of like a one-stop shopping type of scenario. Um, let's look and see where we're at here. Yeah, it's still going. So that's probably going to, be another 20 minutes or so. And we have reached our time. I know that was a lot, but let me know what you think. You can comment or you can talk. I am